about the Nintendo DSi XL and answer why does this exist? And who was it for? And was this model even necessary for Nintendo to release? I hope you're all doing well. My name is James, and today's video is on the Nintendo DSi XL. Why does it exist? I guess we'll have to find out, won't we? I think it's important that we talk about the original Nintendo DSi right here. So let's talk about it. This came out in 2009 everywhere in the world, but 2008 in Japan. As you can see, this is the third model of the Nintendo DS family of consoles, successor to the DS Lite and the precursor to the likes of the DSi XL. As you can see, this console is a lot longer compared to the DS Lite and also a lot thinner as well, measuring around this, I believe. Alongside, being thin, some things are obviously different. Obviously, what hasn't changed is the headphone jack being in the exact same place as the DS Lite. Very unheard of nowadays. But around here as well, you'll notice there's no Game Boy Advance cartridge slot. Well, unfortunately, in order to get down to this thickness of, this size, the Game Boy Advance cartridge slot had to be removed in order to, make it look like this. I guess there's one reason why you would get a DS or a DS Lite for that reason. If you look around this side, we now have the volume up and down back as buttons, whereas before they were down here where they were a slider. Now, personal preference obviously is going to be, up to you, but buttons definitely feel a lot nicer. And obviously, these buttons are very silent, but obviously you can definitely click them and you can obviously turn up the volume and put the volume down if you just don't want to hear the music for whatever reason. At the back, you've got your usual boring stuff. You've got the battery that is literally right here, done by taking these two screws off. You've got the stylus, which, unlike the likes of the Nintendo 2DS, I'm not trying to throw shade here. This is the best size for a Nintendo handheld console. The DS Lite established it, yes, but obviously the DSi continued it. But you also notice as well, in the DSi, you'll notice that this little yellow thing as well, which I think is quite cool. Now, I don't know if this is just, just to help with putting the stylus in correctly like this, but who knows? Nintendo has the ways, right? At the top, you've got your cartridge slot, so put your DS games in like Mario Kart DS, and even some exclusive DSi games. Yes, that is right. There are DSi exclusive games that you can only play on this console. This will not play on any other Nintendo DS. You'll probably even receive like a message saying, hey, it doesn't work on that console, it works on this. Also on the top, you've got your usual, L&R shoulder buttons, but they have been trimmed down a bit. But also, if you look very closely to these buttons as well, you'll also notice a camera on them as well, a little camera icon. That's because when you press these buttons, a little camera app will pop up from directly in the DSi menu. More on that later. And then I guess you can put a wrist strap on. I don't know. Does anybody genuinely use this? Let me know in the comments if you've ever had this, because I know the original had it, and I believe the DS Lite has it, but did anyone genuinely use it? Let me know. Also on that same top side as well, you'll see the charger slot as well, right here. This is the exact same charger that would be used on not only this console, but the DSi, 3DS, 3DS XL, 2DS, new 3DS, new 3DS XL, and of course, the very last console Nintendo made for the 3DS family, the Nintendo 2DS XL. As you can see, boom, exact same charger, all before the likes of the Nintendo Switch came about in 2017 and is now using the traditional USB-C. But let's talk about also the new things that the DSi has. As you can see, the obvious thing that will obviously stand out probably the most to anybody who picks up this console is this camera right here at the hinge of the top. So when it's like this, it looks like that. And there's also one right here in the middle, along with a microphone, as well as much bigger screens compared to the DS Lite, and much even bigger than the original Nintendo DS. On the side where the stylus is a SD card slot. Yes, that is right. An SD card slot was added in order to, you know, be like, okay, we need something new to make this console different. Add an SD card slot and make it as available as they want. Because if we sacrifice one thing, we have to give it another thing. Also, you can put up as big as, I believe, 32 gigabytes, so yeah, you can save your photos and then you display them on the Wii if you want to, on the photo channel. But you can also do other things as well, like homebrewing your DSi, wink wink. Opening this up, as you can see, we've got the 3 lights and even indicators of what does what, so Wi-Fi, charger, and power as well. We got our usual DS, D-pad, nothing changed there, right? But it's obviously a very clicky kind of one, whereas on the DS Lite, they were more mushy. The return of the power button is back, this time right here, at the lower corner. Start and select, same as before on the DS Lite, and the usual A, B, X, Y buttons as well. Also, very clicky. The speakers right here are also changed as well. So they looked like this on the DS Lite, but now they look like this on the DSi. Of course, a new console revision is obviously not going to be without, well, the actual software / menu. Now, did Nintendo just port the DS Lite's menu again and did nothing? As you can see, they really revamped the whole menu for the Nintendo DSi. Now even featuring the DSi I, as eyes, you know, I, one. I don't know what I'm getting at. But, you know, your health and safety warning information, you know, basically the boring, read the operations manual, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Which I don't know if you can hear that. We now have a full, better menu, as you can see. If I move this about, you can see, look at all these cool apps, and you can even move them about, place them down, and you know you can even click into one of them and it starts them up. You know, you can even see what it says right there. It's pretty cool. And the obvious other thing as well that was introduced is, because there's now Wi-Fi fully available on the Nintendo DSi, the DSi shop was included on this console. So, of course, you can choose to download, you know, applications, but you can also download DSiWare games. Now, you won't find virtual consoles, mind you, but, you know, having the opportunity to download, like, you know, cool games that you can only play on this console is pretty cool. And sadly, you know, it's not available anymore because the shop had closed, like, literally for years, so unfortunately, you can't download them. But hey, I guess if you homebrew them, just feel free to add them in. Got the usual download, play, picto chat, but obviously you can also go on the web, which I'm going to assume, because this is 2024 standards, because of course it would be, none of the websites would ever load because of how old this console is. And of course, if you have a DS or a DSi game, you can insert it into this empty cartridge slot and fire it up. It's pretty cool what they've done, and obviously, you know, the nostalgia people have with, you know, this whole menu. And you can also see at the top as well, you know, you can put a little photo, so anytime you take a photo with the DSi, you can just put something up there and display it, you know, like display your selfie, or just display just how incredibly cringe you are. You can get to the camera quickly by pressing one of the shoulder buttons right here, boom, as you can see, and it shows literally right there. You can capture, and you can switch it as well. When you switch it, you can see that the camera right here also has a little light to indicate that it's now in use. Of course, I'm pretty sure if you were a kid and you had this console, I'm pretty sure you have also messed around at some point in the Flipnote Studio app, creating little animations and whatnot. Some actually look very good if you search up Flipnote Studio animations. It did get a sequel as well on the 3DS. One last thing you can also see on the home menu of the DSi is the volume, your name, today's date, and what time it is as well as the battery. Comfortability wise, it's actually really nice to hold, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's very nice, it's very clicky, and I obviously like the DSi. Now, if you want to obviously find where you can purchase this, you can obviously go onto eBay, Amazon, you know, the usual like that. That there has established some of the things that we're going to be talking about with the DSi XL. Of course, many of the things will carry over to that console. So let's talk about the DSi XL now. So that brings us to this, the Nintendo DSi XL. This was the last model that came out in 2010 internationally, so you know, USA, Europe and Asia and everywhere else that had this. But it was released as the DSi LL in 2009 in Japan. As you can see, this is pretty much another DSi. And fun fact, both the smaller size and the bigger size DSi's were actually supposed to have been developed at the same time. I know, crazy, but it was impossible, so they had to develop both smaller DSi and this separately from each other. It's also going to be interesting because this might have actually been a larger DS Lite at one point. Kind of crazy, right? I'll leave a timestamp if you don't want me to go over the hardware. Skip right here. As you can see, you know, we got the same hinge as before. We got the same camera placement right here with that same little dot where you'll see the flash when you turn on the camera in the DSi home menu. On the side, you've got your SD card slot, regular DSi stylus, which would be color matched, I believe, to the console. In this case, it is missing, so I can't really show you it. At the side, right here at the bottom, the same headphone jack placement is there. As you can see, we've got the volume up and down right here for turning up your volume. You know, cartridge slot, L and R shoulder buttons with the little camera icon, same DSi charger slot as beforehand. Open it up, you got your ABXY buttons, start and select, D-pad, and power, as well as a camera in the middle and the microphone. And you can even see what these three lights are indicating to you as the user. Compared to the DSi, there is some differences. First things first, the outside, so when you've got this closed, is now a glossy finish, which, you know, if we know glossy consoles, and 3DS didn't improve this, these things are quite the finger prick magnet. I mean, especially when you compare it to the likes of the DSi, where it's all matte on both the front and the back. It's a bit jarring to see a glossy finish at the front and a matte finish at the back, which, by the way, isn't color matched to the console. But I guess to standardize it and make it easier for manufacturing, it's just all like this. Now, the reason why it's called the DSi XL, or if you own the Japan version called LL, is the reason because both screens right here are 93% larger than Nintendo DS Lite, measuring at 4.2 inches across both screens right here. So you can definitely feel really immersed in the various of games on this bigger screen. The box to this console also came with some exclusive, not exclusive games like Brain Age games pre-installed on this console, but also you got a much bigger DS stylus as well, or DSi XL stylus, I should say. So you can really feel like you're writing on this, especially for Brain Age as well. But it plays the same DSi, DS games as before. You know, you still got, you know, your Flipnote Studio, the same DSi menu, which I can power it on right here. There you go, right there. And yeah, same great menu, same name, same time, same day. You get the point. You've also got the games as I showed you. So, you know, you got your Brain Age right here, which for some reason this is the German version, which is kind of odd. But here it is in the English version right here, and yeah, it looks very good. Holding this console in, you know, the obvious way you would hold any Nintendo DS console, it's really, you know, nice. But for my hands, I mean, you can probably tell just how incredibly, well, how much reach I've got, which is why I obviously like the smaller DSi, is what I primarily use if I'm not using the 2DS XL, which is kind of interesting to say because I'm talking about this and yet I use the 2DS XL. Well, maneuver, am I right? So, of course, this was for an audience that, you know, was hoping that they would release a bigger Nintendo DSi, and I guess, you know, it answered that very question. Obviously, there was demand for the Nintendo DS, so yes, Nintendo was just happily supplying not only the regular size DSi's and the DS Lites, but now with the introduction of the DSi XL into the consoles, you now have 3 options to choose from, and all various of sizes as well. So, now that we've pretty much talked about, you know, not only giving the context to the DSi, but now talked about the DSi XL, and also gave you kind of a brief teaser of the answer, let's go ahead and answer 2 questions. Number 1, was this model necessary for Nintendo to release? Well, the answer is, well, it's difficult, you see. Some may say yes, it was quite unnecessary for Nintendo to release because, well, you know, like, who asked for this? But when you think about it and realize that there is actually people out there that do want to, you know, buy a Nintendo DSi, and, you know, they just don't like the size of, you know, the regular DSi, or even the size of the DS Lite, then I personally think, in my opinion, I think this was a great addition. True, was it necessary? Again, that is up for your interpretation, whether or not. So why does it exist? The reason why it exists is because there was a demand for it. In 2010, there was probably a demand, you know, for a bigger console so that you can play your DS games, you know, your new exclusive DSi games, as well as playing some DSiWare, you know, games as well on this console, as well as Flipnote Studio and the bigger stylus, and, you know, and because you get pre-installed Brain Age games as well, it's definitely a no-brainer to think why the DSi XL wasn't going to exist. So the simple answer is to the question of why it was necessary and why did it exist is because, well, Nintendo released it to give the people what they wanted. And that is why the Nintendo DSi XL exists and why it was necessary. And so, there you go. I have answered the question for you in this very video. You know, the Nintendo DSi XL is definitely one of the great consoles, and obviously, you know, to wrap up the Nintendo DS series of consoles as well. It really just goes to show you, just like, you know, Nintendo was thinking about, okay, what is the demand looking like? And it's interesting that this console and the smaller size DSi was supposed to have been developed at the same time as well. Kinda crazy, right? With your 4.2-inch screens and a 93% larger than the DS Lite, this console is definitely a very welcoming addition to the DS family. But of course, after that, it would be succeeded by the Nintendo 3DS. But if you're looking for a video on another topic that I decided to answer to, that pretty much either you might want to know or you probably just didn't even ask, I decided to answer the question of should you use a Nintendo 3DS camera to take photos and videos, well, in 2024. Right here is the very video you need to click on next. So, click right here and enjoy the video.